Hi, my name is Jenna, and I am an alcoholic. Ugh, that is just icky to have to say, right? I don't know. Not necessarily. Today, let's dive into it right now, breaking down the stigma and the shame regarding addiction and not allowing it to hold us back in becoming the person God created us to be. Hi, I'm Jenna, and I'm always rambling. Just ask my husband. I have a great family and a pretty cool life, but I'm a recovered alcoholic. That's hard to say, but my goal is to inspire and educate to help others hopefully find life beyond an addiction. I'm all things: sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Getting healthy, momming, and politics. Get offended easily? You better stop listening. There is no point in wasting that Botox by stressing yourself out listening to a podcast. Welcome to Ramblings of an Addict with Jenna. Today's episode brought to you by products and services that I'm thoroughly addicted to. Do you know what's worse than a root canal on a Monday morning? Dealing with insurance headaches as an entrepreneur. That's why Cheryl LaBonte with Farm Bureau Financial Services is here to make your insurance journey smooth as butter. As a small business owner, you've got enough on your plate. Let Cheryl handle your small business, disability, life, and health insurance needs so you can focus on your passion. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting out, Cheryl's kind and helpful nature will ensure you receive the best service possible. And if you think insurance is boring, think again. Cheryl's expertise and knowledge will help you navigate the confusing world of insurance with ease. So don't wait until it's too late. Contact Cheryl LaBonte with Farm Bureau Financial Services today and experience the peace of mind that comes with being properly insured. It's your future. Let's protect it. Check the show notes to get Cheryl's contact information and don't wait another day. Welcome to today's podcast. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, sharing this time of your day with me. As always, make sure that you are following or subscribed to the podcast, depending on what app or what platform you're listening to. I definitely appreciate those follows, and it's a great way when you do follow it that it automatically downloads to your device, so you don't have to think about it. Oh yeah, I really like that podcast. I got to remember to go in and check when she downloads. No, you don't, because if you follow or subscribe, it automatically downloads. So it makes your life a heck of a lot easier, which, let's face it, we all could make our lives a little bit easier, right? We need to hit that easy button when we can. So, as always, also make sure if this episode speaks to you, share it. Share it with somebody who you feel could benefit from it. Share it with somebody who you think that maybe they have someone in their life that could utilize the information. And today's episode specifically, this might be a good one to share if you're in like a mom's group or maybe you're in like a health related group. Share it in those groups because even if it's not 100% like speaking to you, it might be speaking to somebody in that group that could really benefit from the information. And today's topic, near and dear to my own heart, obviously it's really going to speak to what I've gone through in my own journey, but I'm going to talk about some numbers and some stats here in today's episode, and the numbers are pretty shocking. And when it comes to addiction, especially dealing with alcohol, it's more common than we think. So sharing it, you might share it with the right person at the right time and not even realize it, and they just needed to hear the words that are going to be said today. So with that, I definitely just want to jump right in. Being someone who now willingly, I admit, yeah, I had an issue with alcohol. Period, plain and simple. And it may seem like I don't have any shame around that. But the truth is, I still do. It's way less than it was in the beginning, and it was way less, obviously, than when I was denying that I had an issue, period. But it's still there. I admit there's even been points when I don't ever have to, I guess, share the title of my podcast, but when I want to share that I have a podcast with somebody because, maybe I did an episode on something we're talking about, or maybe I think that the information that I shared in a previous episode might be helpful for them, and I share it, saying just the title alone, I'm like, oh goodness, depending on who I'm talking to, especially if it's someone that I admire, or it's somebody that I don't want to judge me or put me in like a negative light. Like I want them to have respect for me in some way, shape, or form. Or I think we all are on the same page here. You know what I'm talking about. But I worry, like, oh my goodness, are they going to judge me? Like, are they going to freak out and not want to do business with me? Are they going to freak out and not want me involved in the organization or the plan or whatever we're doing together? Because now they're finding out that I had an addiction. Because truth be told, right? There is a huge freaking stigma around addiction and alcoholics. So my problem is I never want people on the other side to think that I'm weak. Or that I'm a fucking loser, right? I think for the most part, a lot of times, at least, rewind your brain back to when you're really young. Like thinking of an addict, usually, okay, maybe I'm judging based off of my own perception, but like an addict was what I perceived as a loser, right? But the truth is, I said I was going to share numbers with you. So in 2019, the study that I read, it found that 6% of American adults over the age of 18 had an issue with alcohol. 6%. So 6% may not sound like a lot, but that's 6 people in every 100. So think about a space that you've been in recently with, over 100 people. 6 of those faces in that room minimum in 2019 were dealing with this, struggling with booze. And my guess, after the pandemic, I guarantee you, I would put a lot of money down on this bet. Good thing gambling's not one of my addictions. But I bet that number's higher. Because liquor stores were open during the pandemic, and I think, it was kind of the joke, but like everybody was drinking during the pandemic, or a lot of people. I totally just generalized there, but a lot of people were drinking during the pandemic, and I think even since then, the world just will never go back to quote unquote normal, right? We're shifted from what the world looked like prior to the pandemic. So I am safe to guess, I believe, that numbers are higher. So I honestly think that it's crappy that there is stigma and shame around the whole topic. And I believe that it can impact people with getting the help that they need. Because they have that fear. They don't want people to judge them. They don't want to feel shameful. They don't want to have that stigma wrapped around them as a person. They don't want to have the label. They don't want to have to admit it to other people. They don't want to be judged as a loser or a shitty person. So instead, they just keep it all bottled up, hiding it all, and they don't get the help that they need. Mine was, like, obviously I like to party. So like I knew admitting that I had an issue, I knew that was going to have to end. But even above and beyond that, like, I didn't want to be labeled like that. No, I don't have an issue. I'm fine. Like, I remember getting angry a few times when people would bring it up to me. So today, though, as always, right, this podcast, we always talk about the facts and the hard things, but we always talk about tips as well, because that's what life is about, right? So today I wanted to talk about the best tips that I have found for pushing past the stigma and the shame so that we can get help. And first and foremost, I'm going to go like the health coach safe way, because if anyone ever came to me as a health coach and said they had an issue, first step I'm always going to share with them is to go to a therapist or a counselor or something of that sort, right? To be completely honest, it's a legal thing, right? Like liability, I need to cover my rear end. But above and beyond that, like, it's not just that legal piece. I know if somebody's really having an issue with alcohol, with addiction, get your ass to a pro that can help you deal with it. If you're truly wanting help, don't try to muddle through an actual addiction by your lonesome. Go to somebody that can help you, whether it's a counselor, a therapist, rehab. Maybe you're somebody that like you can be guided by a spiritual mentor and they can totally help you get through it. Everybody's different. I don't want to, put the stigma around it either that it has to be a specific path with a certain type of professional. But in my mind, it's fucking hard to break an addiction. It is so hard, especially when it's a substance. When you are relying on a substance to get through life, which I was. I shared in previous episode that my official diagnosis was alcohol abuser, which meant that I was relying on alcohol to pretty much help me mute my life. I could go, kick ass like the best of them. But then when I wanted to pause life, or I knew I needed to unplug and I didn't know how to do it, because all my emotions would come screaming back to me if I tried to just mute and like chill out. So instead, I would just cover it all up with booze. I didn't do it every day. I wasn't the type of person that was drinking from morning till night daily, right? So I wasn't that type of alcoholic, which I think a lot of us get that picture in our minds. But I was drinking pretty regularly. I would say 2 times a week was about normal. But when I was drinking, it was sip, hit my lips, and it was the green light until I pretty much would black out. And when you're doing that once, if not twice, sometimes even 3 times a week, that's fucked up. That's not okay, right? So for me, I was able to be like, when I hit my rock bottom, I've shared in, I believe it was episode 4. Oh, goodness. It was an earlier episode. But when I hit my rock bottom, I was like, I'm done. I'm not touching it again. But I also went to my counselor, who also had that type of therapy background, so she could work with me. But I immediately incorporated that because I knew I need people in my corner. So all that to say, my first tip, always, find a pro that can actually help you. Do not try to do it by yourself. You don't need to do it by yourself, right? There's things we're good at in life, and then there's times you just need to tap somebody else in to help you out. And this is one of those moments where don't even waste your energy, your time. Bring somebody else in to help you. Do not even... I don't want to say don't even attempt, because maybe there's going to be that person that can absolutely do it. But why try when it's something this big? Bring someone in. So the second thing is looking up facts, looking up stats around whatever addiction you have, right? Like I looked up the one about 6% of Americans in 2019, right? why I say to do this is to kind of normalize it. Not to give yourself a pass or not to be like, see, everybody does it, or this much percent, this many Americans. No, to normalize it with the fact of, I'm not alone. There's other people struggling too. I don't need to have all this shame, all this crap feelings wrapped up in this because I'm not the only one. It's not like I'm this asshole of a person that couldn't get it together and I'm the only one. The numbers are pretty damn high, right? So we don't need to feel all of this shame. Sometimes having the facts that there's other people out there that have had the same struggles or very similar struggles, it's easier to accept the fact that, hey, yes, I did fall into this path. This shit did happen. But guess what? I can get through it. I can create better. I can be a good person still. And not that you weren't a good person before, but you weren't the person you wanted to be. You weren't the person that you feel God created you to be. So normalize it a little bit with facts and stats. So your counselor or your spiritual mentor or whatever you're going to, right? They're helping you. They're giving you all of their tools to help. You look up some facts, you look up some stats, you normalize it a little bit in your own brain. You know, even as a health coach, I do that one with people. You know, when they're, crap, I went and I fell off the wagon, I went to McDonald's, I ate a double cheeseburger, and dude, do you know how many people do that? Like, don't beat yourself up too bad. Do you know how many Americans probably ate a cheeseburger yesterday? Probably a lot. You're fine. Let's get back on the horse. We can keep charging forward. Doesn't make you a bad person, right? It can be little things like that you're normalizing, but something like this, where the shitty feelings can tag along very easily, definitely give yourself that, I guess, peace of mind that I'm not the only one. Okay? The next step you want to do is, okay, now you've looked up the facts, you've looked up the stats, you know there's other people that have struggled. Now spend some time looking up success stories. Looking up people who have flipped their lives around. They were the addicts, they were the alcoholics, down in the dumps, and now their lives are amazing. Yeah, they're human, right? They're still going to have errors, they're still going to sin, they're still going to have hiccups in life. But they went from being somebody struggling with a substance to, damn, they really put a lot of hard work in and it paid off. You know, even if you want to go as big as like looking up, you know, celebrities, there's a lot of celebrities who have turned their life around from addiction. And I'll be honest, some of them aren't my favorite people. Like I look at them and I'm like, oh, I don't really love what you do, but you know what? You were down in the dumps. Like for example, like Eminem, he was addicted, you know, for quite a while. Or think like Jersey Shore. Like that was my generation, right? Jersey Shore, Mike the Situation. He had his issues. You know, he spent some time in jail in working hard to get his life on better track. At least from what I see. You know? And sometimes, maybe even you're obviously just seeing their highlight reel, right? We've talked about the highlight reel on this podcast before. But sometimes that's okay. Seeing someone's highlight reel, seeing how they went from the dumps to better, it's just the motivation we need to know that, hey, I can do this. And guess what? Again, tapping into that feeling of I'm not alone and I can still have a freaking killer life because look at these people. All right. So transparency with you here, because I know with this piece, so with, you know, how can I push past the shame? How can I push past the guilt? How can I push past the stigmas around, you know, whatever addiction I have? Some people would be like, get yourself in a group. It's going to be the best thing for you. And maybe it is. You know, when I was prepping for this podcast, I did do a little research into that. And, you know, some people swear by it. They say it helps. It really helps with that normalization piece. So not only are you like researching, you're looking up stats, facts, success stories, you're seeing them in real life in these groups you're attending. And for some people, that works amazing. The transparency piece, that was not my jam. For me personally, that wasn't my thing. But I'm not saying it couldn't be yours. So if you've never tried a group and you think, hey, that might be something that helps me, please go try one. Absolutely. Groups weren't my jam. The couple times I went, I don't know, I just felt like things were very hyper-focused on the ones that were bolder and louder, who kind of fit the stigmas that I did have in my mind. And maybe that could have been the group I attended, right? Because I have heard from some people very similar thoughts to mine, but I've heard from people in person, and like I said, I did research and I saw in some of the stories I was reading the exact opposite. So this one, very personal choice. You need to determine, is that something that I think could work for me? But normalizing it, whether you do it online, in person, is going to be key. You're normalizing it in your own brain, not normalizing it in the aspect of, well, fuck it, everyone's an addict. I'm just going to stay an addict, right? You're normalizing it in the fact that I don't need to have all this shame around this as I'm working to get better, because I'm not the only one. All right. So the next piece is you need to make sure that you're changing the narrative, changing the story in your own head, changing the story of what you're telling yourself about your situation, about the person you are, about what you're going through, about what you've gone through. And I'm going to tell you, this takes a lot of freaking work, lots of effort. It's really relies on you being incredibly mindful on your end. But this part, changing that story in your own head, is key. Because you need to focus on changing the narrative in your own head regarding what went on and what you're going through and how you're trying to change things first, right? So I want you to always remember, you need to have self-compassion. Everyone makes mistakes. Some mistakes are little. I think of my daughter when accidents happen and she dropped something on the floor. Yeah, that's a little mistake. Me, my rock bottom, when I destroyed my house, almost destroyed my relationship with my boyfriend at the time, now husband, almost destroyed the relationship with my dad. All in one swift evening. That's a big fucking mistake. But people make mistakes. I had to give myself self-compassion for that evening, plus plenty of other drunken evenings and days and afternoons, because I'm human. And the biggest piece is, I made a mistake and I'm trying to get better. The next piece, you need to focus on how you're still writing your life story. What happened before, it happened. Those pages are written. But your story's not over. The pages are still continuing to pop in and be written every single day. The pages up until this point, they may be an ugly story. They may be far from perfect. They may be pages that you're like, I can't believe this is my story. But you can tap into that. Utilize that as fuel to say, but you know what? I'm going to use that as knowledge. I'm going to use that as motivation to continue to write the upswing on these upcoming pages. Right? No one says you have to, the storyline needs to remain flat or that it needs to go downward. Write your upswing. So you need to, like I said, Change your mindset. Change your narrative about where you are in life, what you've gone through. Don't have that negative stigma around it. You could, fuck it all. I'm right in my upswing. Watch me. The biggest thing we need to remember is if God put us in this position in life, He also will equip us so that we can go beyond that. We can create that upswing. We need to rely on Him. 100%. It needs to be about that, but we can do it. So I know that a lot of people with, I think with addictions, when we're dealing with something that could be judged from the outside, a lot of people are, well, then it's my job to change the narrative out in society, big picture wise, right? I personally think if God put that in your future path as one of your responsibilities, as one of your purposes for being here, to change the narrative as a whole within society, that will be put on your heart strong. He will make sure to call you into that. I don't personally think that it is going to be everyone's duty, right? Just because you had an addiction, you drank too much, you went down the road of pills, whatever it was, right? It doesn't need to be your duty to normalize or get rid of that stigma, get rid of that shame across the board with every single person you come across, or as many lives as you can absolutely try to impact. If He changed it in you, and that's where it stops, it's okay to be okay with that. And obviously this is all my personal opinion, but the fact that anyone kicks an addiction, continues to fight against it, that's something that we can be proud of, and that should be enough, right? We all have our purpose or purposes for being here. And just because we had something not so great in our past doesn't mean that needs to be our purpose. So we don't need to all be recovery specialists moving forward. If we do, and that's what is on your heart, I know several. That's great that God put that on that person's heart, but it doesn't need to be there. Changing the narrative, changing that stigma in your head is priority one, main priority. If it goes beyond there, great. If not, that's what's meant to be. So, today, I just wanted to spend some time, like I said, talking a little bit about the stigma and the shame and action steps we can implement to fight against it. Because, you push past the stigma enough to fight against the addiction. And you should be proud of that. I also want to thank you, just in general, for tuning into this episode. It shows that, hey, you at least push past the stigma of alcoholism or addiction enough to push play and listen to this episode. And whether it was for you or for a loved one or for a friend or just for your knowledge bank, that in itself is a freaking positive step. Millions of Americans struggle with alcoholism. And honestly, it's time to break down those barriers of shame and judgment, because people want to get the help. And if that shame is what's blocking them, that's a real freaking bummer. Because I can tell you from being on this side of it, being able to, with the love and support of family, friends, and honestly God, being able to push past that stigma is what allowed me to become the person I am today and the person I'm continuing to become each and every day. So whether you are considering seeking help for you, supporting a loved one, supporting a friend, I want you to remember that there's always hope. And there's a bright future ahead if you're willing to put in the work. With the right tools, the right resources, we can overcome challenges and live that life, like I said, that God put you here for the purposes He built into you. I want to thank you so much for tuning in to Ramblings of an Addict. Please share this episode with anyone that you feel could benefit from this information, and continue to join me on this journey of living our best lives, following those purposes that are installed in each of us, as we continue to dive in one rambling at a time. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Ramblings of an Addict with Jenna Dix. Remember, if you are battling an addiction, reach out for help and support. There are many resources available to assist in your journey towards recovery. Surround yourself with a supportive community and never give up on the path towards a healthier and happier life. I appreciate you taking the time to listen and joining me on this journey. As you heard, I'm always rambling. But seriously, thank you for your support, and make sure to subscribe and follow my channel. I can't wait to share more with you on the next episode. Until then, keep on rambling. If you have found this podcast helpful and want to dive deeper into personal growth and self-improvement, be sure to head over to my website, jennadix.com. You'll find a wealth of resources there. There is a little less drugs, sex, and rock and roll these days, but whether you're interested in getting healthy, information on momming or parenting, or politics, jennadix.com has something for everyone. So, what are you waiting for? Head to jennadix.com today and start your journey towards personal growth and self-awareness. See you there.